Yo, what's checking, everybody? Welcome back to the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum, joined by Anwar Richardson. As always, do us a solid, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and we'll get on talking. What? You give me I don't know what that was.
I don't know what that motion was when you said ring that bell.
I don't know. You ring the bell. Like there's a bell and you pull the...
No, don't do that.
It reminds me of... I know you've never seen this. But back in the day, there was an A&M Texas Tech game.
Yes.
Texas Tech has the bell, and you just see the guy pulling the bell.
That's another video, Ketch.
That technically, if there's a bell to be rung, you pull the chain and ring the bell. But don't do what I did unless you want to. Like, no judgment over here on this side of the fence. Look, we're talking about the Texas quarterback situation. Anwar Richardson just joined I guess it was a Zoom meeting with new Texas starting quarterback Casey Thompson. First time that Casey Thompson's had a chance to, I guess, talk to the media since early in camp when both of the quarterbacks were made available to kind of talk about the situation. Anwar, for those that obviously wouldn't have been involved in watching the meeting, the highlights, the things that stood out to you from Casey Thompson's meeting with the media earlier today. And then I guess we'll just kind of talk about where things stand now that the decision to make the change has been made. We've heard from the new starting quarterback. There's still a lot of stuff to digest.
The thing about Casey that's really interesting is he's very polished, but he's still not afraid to say how he thinks or what he thinks. And so, guys who've been interviewed since high school, they kind of know what the media is getting at with certain questions. So certain things that he said, like he said, hey, yeah, he was frustrated, obviously, that he didn't get the job and that he didn't earn, he didn't win the job at that moment. Started talking about how he was trying to watch movies to kind of take his mind off of it. And you would appreciate the movie list, Ketch. He said he'd like to watch movies that make him think, right? So he said he would watch, he loves Leonardo DiCaprio. So he watched some of those movies, Inception. He said, the book, then he also said he looks into I think that's a series called Focus, into Book of Eli. So these are the kind of things that he was watching to kind of take his mind off of everything, but then still trying to stay engaged and still trying to be, a good teammate, but still waiting his turn. And even said someone asked him, and it wasn't me, but someone asked him, like, were you ticked off that it took so long for you to come into the Arkansas game? And he said, yeah, well, I was frustrated, as we were losing. And of course, I'm a competitor. And of course, I want to go in there. And of course, I want to be in there and help my team out. So he was very real about, and he wasn't hiding his emotion, that there was a lot of frustration on his end, that how he had to just kind of keep, bite his tongue, keep, chopping away at that wood and then waiting for his opportunity. He also said something I thought was interesting when someone asked him about like losing the job. And it was like guys asked like a kind of a two-part question and how do you handle. He's like, I never felt like I lost the job. Because I know everyone keeps saying I lost the job, because I didn't lose the job. They just went into a different direction. And it was it's an interesting mindset of a competitor. But the other thing I will say, Ketch, that was very interesting. I don't remember us talking to Hudson Card heading into definitely not last week. And maybe the season opener might have been when we spoke to him, I think. And then we haven't spoken to him since. And so I thought it was very interesting that he made the quarterback available this week to talk about it going into Rice. I think that, you and I both know when the coach makes a guy available, he's essentially saying you are the face of the franchise for us. And so I think that this move not only indicates that, he's the face of the franchise, but probably for the immediate future, that they expect Casey Thompson to be the guy, at least immediate future going forward.
Yeah, I think that you and I have talked about this now. We talked about it yesterday, but I think we might have even hit on it in the post-game show. Changing your starting quarterback is no small thing. And, when you, as a matter of fact, to kind of get some perspective on it, there hasn't been another position change on the two deep at any other position so far through camp. There's been one change at a starting position through the first two games of the season. And even when Sarkisian was asked about the offensive line yesterday, and hey, given how that group really through the first two games, it's not like that group was really good against Louisiana either. Do you think about bringing an Andre Carrigan or a Hayden Connor to see if you can get some better results? And Sark really kind of pushed back against that and said, look, we hope to get some young guys in, but we think the starters need continuity. They need more reps and experience together. So it's not a small thing that you've changed your starting quarterback. And I think that it would be naive for anybody to think that it's not Casey Thompson's show to some extent. And, one of the things that I wondered about was, would we see a true quarterback battle on Saturday, beginning on Saturday, with both guys playing the first half and both guys maybe playing the first quarter, and maybe you start to decide who your starting quarterback is based on a side-by-side comparison in the same games. And it just doesn't seem like that's where we are. It feels like Casey Thompson's going to get the same luxury that Hudson Card did for 6 quarters, which is the other guy will get reps when the game allows for it to happen. But that might not happen in a game. And, Hudson Card might play on Saturday, but if Rice makes that a game, and let's say for whatever reason a shootout breaks out and it's 38-27 in the fourth quarter, I mean, it might be Casey Thompson's, he might get a full 4-quarter game. And so the ball definitely feels like it's in Casey Thompson's court. And now it's about what he does with it. And it is every bit as much of a fascinating conversation as it was when Hudson Card was given the ball. And what does this mean on the flip side? Now Casey Thompson gets a chance. He mentioned today, this will be his first start in nearly 4 years. He mentioned November of 2017. So we're talking about 45 months or so since he's last started a game. I think that because he's an older guy, it's a little easier to forget that this will be his first college start on Saturday, and that when he goes to Fort Worth, potentially that will be your first road start, your first OU game. And just like Hudson Card had a lot of firsts that he had to go through, Casey Thompson now has to get those same firsts under his belt. And if you're Steve Sarkisian and the coaching staff, you've got to support him the way you were prepared to support Hudson Card, to make sure that everything that he needs to achieve the maximum amount of success is in his hands.
Yeah. And I think, Ketch, we haven't dived too deeply into this. You and I have had some conversations behind the scenes. But one of the things that makes us believe that it's Thompson's job for the time being is that, Hudson Card put things on film that just showed that he was a young player. And it's not a knock. It's not, I think everyone is looking for this like defining, like, aha moment. Like, two things could be true in life, right? I mean, it could be that Hudson Card is a future NFL, pick, a future NFL player who's got a lot of upside. And the other thing that could be true is, but he still is a redshirt freshman that is going to have to go through some growing pains and some learning in order to reach that potential. But the only reason a move was made is simply just because of what was on film. It was what he put on film, the missed throws, the opportunities, some of the happy feet, all the little things that, you're going to expect from a young quarterback to struggle. I thought it was really interesting. And I don't think DeMarvin had always shown wasn't trying to throw any shade. He was asked a direct question and he gave a direct answer. And he said that someone asked him about the difference of when Casey came in versus when Hudson was in there. And this was from today. So we're talking about Tuesday. And he said that one guy had more experience than the other. And he said, you could tell very early on that Card was rattled, but then Casey was able to come in, able to use his legs and kind of escape. So that clearly was, everybody on the sideline felt that That's clearly what was up in the tape. And so now he's still young. He still has time to learn. He still has time to develop. And now it gives Casey, to your point, the same opportunity that Hudson had. And the thing that we can't remember, people forget in this quarterback battle, and I posted something like this on Orange Blood's Catch, Casey Thompson was probably the number one guy for about 90% of the offseason. I mean, probably about 90%, and I don't know the exact math, but it's about 90%. Hudson Card was only after the first scrimmage did Hudson start running with the ones, and so he's probably was only been the number one guy for the last 3 to 4 weeks, something to that effect, maybe 4 weeks or so. So, Casey Thompson had overall had been the guy who had the position, was getting all the reps, all these other type of things. So, now it's up to Casey to make sure, if he doesn't want any back and forth, because I joked about this on Monday, golly, if you have to make another quarterback change, something bad's probably happened. Yeah. And if you've got to pull Casey against TCU or OU, you're talking about man, where's the season even headed at that point if you got to make another one? So it's really up to Casey at this point, now that he has his opportunity. He's got to close the door on it. He's got to not only perform well against Rice, but you've got to put the things on film that coaches need to see. And give me a second, can I just give a story real quick?
Sure, of course.
And this is how important film work is. I don't think I've ever publicly shared this story, and I think it's safe enough window where I can share it right now. Years ago, I was when I covered the Bucks, I wrote a story, and it had to do with Josh Freeman when he was there in his as a rookie. So I don't know what year that is. Maybe we're talking 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Someone would have to look that up for me. I don't remember specifically. Anyway,
it was 2008.
2008?
I think so, because he played against Texas in 2007 and kicked their ass.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So I know it's in that time. So any case, so he goes out and he threw an interception in a game. And I had said something in the story that said, Josh Freeman, missed his receiver through an interception. And the offensive coordinator at the time was a guy by the name of Greg Olson. He read that in that story. And one day he said, he's like, hey, I want to talk to you one day and I want to bring you in. And I said, okay. And so several weeks later, he brings me in on a weekend to the complex. There's a couple of people around. I bring donuts. It's like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. He goes, I want to do something that's going to help you in your career. And I said, okay. So he showed me a play, and let's say it's like a 5-yard out. All right, catch, 5-yard, head towards the sidelines, right? So what he does at that moment is he shows me how the Patriots run that play. He shows me how the Steelers run that play. He showed me how the Rams run that play, that exact same play. He showed me all the cut-ups. Then he shows me how it's run in practice on Wednesday. He shows me that exact same play on Thursday, that Friday, Saturday walkthrough in the hotel. Then he shows me that exact play on Sunday. And he shows that the receiver, instead of going out, went up, and Freeman threw it to exactly where it needed to be. And that's why the ball got intercepted. So this is when sometimes when coaches start talking about going back and look at the film, these are the little things that they're looking at. Was it the receiver's fault? Was it the quarterback's fault? He started going through a bunch of little different plays to show me the difference. And again, starting from how everyone else in the NFL does it to their entire week of practice, and then how it wasn't executed during the game day. The story is relevant because I know in that mindset, that's what Sarkisian did. He went back and looked at every little thing, every play that they drew up, and then looked at, okay, what did the quarterback do? Was it the receiver's fault? Was it the quarterback's fault? And for him to make the change, it showed there was a little bit more on the quarterback than it was the offensive line, the receivers. And so that's why a change was made. And so now that's a part of the learning process, of growth. I just wanted to share that, just kind of to understand, if a quarterback change is made, these are the things that go into that decision-making process. Long story, but I wanted to share it.
No, I think that's, and informative story. There's a part of the conversation I still find interesting, and I don't want to get too far removed from Overshown's remarks. It's interesting that the players sensed that Card was rattled. It's interesting that Sark seemed to be the last to either acknowledge that. I mean, look, I'm president of the fan club, and we were talking even on Slack on Saturday night, like, man, if you're not bringing Thompson in now at the start of the third quarter, what on earth do you need to see? It was a 16-0 game. He doesn't end up getting in until 33-7. Now, look, now that he's come in, he's had a chance to watch. I wonder what Sark's, I mean, he'll probably never truly dive in and tell us, because why would he? I mean, but I wonder what he was seeing in real time that caused him to hesitate so much. Because while I think that game was probably already over at 16-0, I think I used the word naive earlier. I think you might be naive to think that all of the things that went wrong for Texas on Saturday were completely connected to the quarterback position. It was hard to find guys that played well, but waiting so long ends up being curious, because it might have stopped this team from really having a chance to compete in that game. And that extra 12 minutes of game time that Sark made before making the decision essentially made it so that by the time Thompson came in, it was too late. But since he changed quarterbacks after the game anyway, the need to protect Card, because it's his job, kind of went out the window anyway. It's a curious thing. It's in the grand scheme of things, it'll be forgotten over the course of the next couple of weeks, but we're still just a few days removed from it. And it's still one of the things that's hard to wrap your head around, at least from my perspective, that it did take so long to make that call, because it might have been the difference between Texas being able to get back into that game and not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say it was a bad decision, right? I think, and I think he was asked about it after the game, and he said, like, hindsight is 2020. But our boy, our guy Clarence Hill keeps retweeting stuff. He keeps retweeting. He keeps saying even Stevie Wonder could have seen this, and I think that was probably like the thing. Like you use the Rocky, analogy with Apollo Creed, and like throw the damn towel, and then that's kind of was like, throw the towel, because we saw how the offense kind of reacted differently when Casey got in, and we saw what he was able to do. And so it's easy to say, well, damn, sorry, like you didn't convert 1/3 down in the first half. And especially after the first 3 and out that you go to start the second half, you got to say, all right, man, this isn't about the decision, right? This is about the team and what's best for the team. And waited until the fumble happened. It's too late at that point. I got to go back and see at some point you pull your starters, somewhere in the fourth quarter, which is, it's a little crazy to me as well. Ketch, we watched like that Lions game on Sunday, and there's something to be said to saying, you know what, we're going to fight to the very end, and we're going to try to win it. Running Keelan Robinson on 3 dive plays, 3 straight. I mean, no, hurry up. Let's try to get back in this. Like, try to get back in this. It was a weird. I know he probably wouldn't want to say he waved the white towel, but it definitely seemed like the white towel was being raised.
Well, Bijan wasn't on the field.
Correct. So at that point, you waved the towel, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a curious second half decision where you felt like, all right, I guess you're not trying to win the game. I guess you're just trying to get out of here at this point. So, it was interesting, but now I will give him credit for at least, we talked about this on Monday. At least he could have very easily just dismissed everything, stood by his guy. He would have a good game against Rice. I think we would predict that, but he was able to say, you know what? It's time to make a decision, make a correction here. And, even though after 2 games it might look crazy. I just need to give this other guy a chance. And you know what? If you say it was that close in training camp, it was that close, the toughest decision, you just got to kind of go with your gut, then it's easier. I think maybe it's easier to go with Casey and say, all right, maybe my gut was wrong. and try to see what's best for this team long term. That's why I think this thing with Casey is going to be is doing it for what he thinks is best long term. But for Sarkisian's sake, he's better hope Casey works out, because if Casey doesn't work out, then it could be a long season.
Well, I think that if the players are openly saying that they can, to use the word rattled, may not have wanted to throw your quarterback under the bus, but it's a revealing comment to say that we could tell early in the game that this was an issue. If he sticks with Card, and I wrote something on over at orangebloods.com today that, like, with a little bit more time to think about it and process what happened, and like to hear about the film sessions and stuff that exists there, I think the players would have had some doubt the next time they go into battle with Hudson Card, whether it's on the road at TCU, even Rice on Saturday. Like, I think there would have been some doubt. It's a revealing thing in terms of why you have to make the change, because your team has to be able to believe in your quarterback. And who knows, there could be a scenario where Casey Thompson has a really bad game, and then the whole team's like, maybe it doesn't matter who plays quarterback, and we got to win the game despite our quarterback. Like, you don't want to get to that point, but there's been a lot of football teams in history that eventually get to a point where they know. I mean, we've seen Texas teams feel this way, that everybody else better pick up the slack because it won't be the quarterback that does it. I wonder what kind of, if Casey, let's just say Casey has, it's hard to process that Casey could have as bad of a game as Hudson just did, because that felt historically bad. It's really, I've been covering Texas football for 25 years. Even now, off the top of my head, I can't think of a quarterback performance from a starter. Maybe Swoops.
There's got to be some Swoops games in there.
Maybe Swoops against Arkansas, or
Rod Hurd. I mean, after the Cal game, it started to kind of go down a little bit.
But there's nothing that stands out in terms of all,
Yes.
Maybe that Notre Dame game at Notre Dame is the one that sticks out, where it just was never good. Maybe the TCU 50-7. I guess there have been some games.
Now that it's coming back to you.
But if Thompson has one of those games, is it treated exactly the same, or are we at this point where if it happens again, you got to just stick with what you're doing, and Thompson will get, I don't want to say benefit of the doubt, but a little bit of a longer leash than I mean, there's no way to get around the fact Card's leash turned out to be pretty short. Is Thompson working with the same leash, or by default does it end up being longer because you can't keep going back? You can flip guys in games if a guy's struggling, but to change it officially on the depth chart is, it's no small thing.
I mean, I don't know if you start flip-flopping and going back and forth, again, something, it's bad. It's bad. And there's a couple of things that you would have to question. You would have to question why neither quarterback is ready for the season, and neither quarterback is able to handle it. You could say one is one thing, two would be pretty bad. But, I don't know what the leash ends up being, but, again, barring something crazy, you expect a little bit of competitiveness from Rice, but you expect the highlight of the game to be their band. And that's about, that's about it. And then I think this becomes the confidence booster that Casey needs. Like, if you're going to have your first start, you probably want it to be against Rice. And then be able to do what you need to do in order to then get ready for Texas Tech the following week. So and again, both games being at home.
Yep,
so that
deal.
gives you, that's a huge plus before you have to go on the road versus TCU and all that Gary Patterson is going to have. But I think, Ketch,
Can I ask you a quick question real quick that might help answer the question?
Yeah.
Do you think, barring injury, Casey Thompson starts the remaining 10 games on the schedule?
That's kind of where I said it. Yes.
Okay.
That's where I was going to head. I think what Casey Thompson is going to provide for Steve Sarkisian is a low floor. We'll see what his ceiling is. I'm not expecting him to score on every possession, right? Even though he's scored on 9 of his last 10, let's just be honest. Like, that's a streak that is going to be really hard to maintain. But I think the floor will be lower for him and a lot easier for Sarkisian to accept than the floor that he saw against Arkansas. So I believe that this, I think the thing that Casey Thompson does well, I think he moves around the pocket. You go back and look at that game, he keeps his head up. There's a pocket presence that surrounds him, and then he's very decisive. When it's time to run, he's like, I'm going to get those 5 yards. I'm going to get those 6 yards. I'm done. I think there's something to be said, Ketch, from just in the locker room kind of feel when you see your quarterback on 4th down, sacrificing his body for a touchdown. Like, that does something for all the guys. But I think he helps the offensive line that's not that strong just by his footwork, just by his able to move around. Does Hudson as a slinger, like, just to sling it in there? Like, absolutely. He's that guy. I think Casey still has a good enough arm. And I think when it comes to the touch on the deep balls, it's the kind of thing that I've been pointing out since, training camp and beyond. And I know people were like, that's BS, but we've seen it in games. I think he'll be, when you're talking about getting it over the linebacker's head, but before the safety gets there, like that window is what I think Casey Thompson will be able to do very well for them going forward. So yeah, I don't think I'd be surprised that you were talking 4 games from now and he's not, he's still not the starting quarterback. I think this is his job for the rest of the year. And then it's just up to him to make the most of the opportunity. But I think the low floor is really what will be the big difference going forward.
It's interesting. It feels like the initial decision at the quarterback position was made on ceiling.
Yes.
And it feels 2 weeks into the season, it's made on floor.
Yes, that's good. Yep.
You know what I mean? I think you nailed it. And I think that in retrospect, because I've personally talked about ceiling a lot, but it wasn't until we've all seen Hudson's floor that the floor, I think, really became paramount in this discussion. Any other thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, there's no other thoughts. We'll have a good, huh?
I said I have one.
Okay, go for it.
People can't panic when Casey makes the first mistake.
Yeah.
It can't be even on Saturday against Rice. It can't be. I'll say the same thing for Casey that I said about Hudson going into the Louisiana game. It can't be he makes a mistake and you turn your head to the sideline to see what the other guy's reacting to. Is he warming up on the sideline? Casey Thompson's now the starting quarterback at the University of Texas. You have to give him room to grow. And I think barring a meltdown on the level of what we saw Saturday in Fayetteville, everybody's got to ease up a little bit on this quarterback conversation and let Casey Thompson have a chance to figure this thing out. And it's easier said than done. But if this season's going to be a success, the pressure can't be always at a max at the quarterback position. And we won't truly know until we get into some tougher games when Casey gets a chance to have a test on the level of the one that Hudson just had. But my goodness, if the kid makes a mistake, you got to allow him the opportunity to do that and bounce back. Because if you panic now as just a fan base, I think it makes this season way more difficult than otherwise it would be, even if it means learning to live with some turnovers. Casey might make some. Casey probably will make some. And everybody's just got to like swallow that and understand it. And I think that everybody, the team and the program will be better for it if they can acknowledge that mistakes happen, but their first instinct can't be make the change.
Yeah. My final thought, and I think that what you said is very true, because we can't do this every game, right? Every pass, every quarter.
We can't do this show every Tuesday.
It's going to get exhausting. It's going to get exhausting. You gotta say, okay, that's your quarterback until something is proven otherwise. The only other thing I'll say, and I've said it a little bit before, but I'll just say it again. I will give Sarkisian his props. Not an easy decision to make. You pointed out in your Sunday column, and I know we had talked about this before. There's not a lot of coaches that would be willing to say, like, you know what, I made a mistake 2 games into a new place, a new tenure. Like that takes a lot of balls. Like, it really does. Like, it takes a lot of cojones to say, you know what, I this was not the best decision, and I'm going to correct this and do what's best for the team going forward. It's easy. He could have very easily had pride. Could have very easily said, that's my guy. I don't care what you guys think, like all that. But for him to have that self-recognition and say, ooh, let me switch this around. I will have to give Sarkisian props on that. I always want to be fair and balanced in my observations. And so, yeah, I may be critical, like maybe it took you too long, but I will give you props that, hey, you're doing what's best for your team now. And for that, kudos to you, Sarkisian.
A little bit of humility there, which is not a trait we often. I actually can't remember ever using that word with a head football coach at the University of Texas. So
hell, Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going. Coaches are known for blaming everybody else but themselves.
I was about to say, would you ever use the word humility with Gruden?
No, I would have used it with Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, Gruden, no. God, I was watching him last night, and what a crazy game that was. But
Darren Waller, the best player he's ever coached.
Ever. Drops and all. I mean, he is amazing. Glad I picked him up in the 4th round of our fantasy draft. Sad that someone picked up Kyler Murray that I played against and could not beat. But no, there's if you want to have hope for what the future may look like under Sarkisian, his ability to say, you know what, that I can do better, and I will, and being able to have that self-reflection and change it. Maybe didn't want to change it in game, and there's different reasons that go into that. But to go on Sunday and look and have a meeting and say, guys, we're going to go in a different direction, and here's why, and then do it with the same conviction. Yeah, it's a trait you don't see from coaches. So my parting shot is, I don't know what the word is, admirable or props, but whatever the word is I'm looking for, that whatever that is, that applies to Sarkisian in this instance.
100% agree. Look, if you like the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We're growing every single day, and we appreciate and love the fact that you guys have joined us for this ride. Until tomorrow, for Anwar, Richardson, and myself, you guys take care of each other. Be good. Later.